Let's start this session, friends. Welcome you to the session on sprint review event, do's and don'ts. See, team, why it is very important to understand the sprint review event in detail. See, if you look, right, in a Scrum, you have a sprint planning, then you have daily stand-up meetings, then you have the product backlog refinement session in the mid of the sprint, and then you have sprint review, and then sprint retrospective. Out of all the events, okay, sprint review is the event where you showcase the working increment to the working product backlog increment to the product owner and other stakeholders. So this is the event where you demonstrate, the work progressed. That means as part of this event, you will be showcasing the working product. That means, friends, in waterfall methodology, we used to provide reports about the work progressed. But in Agile, as part of this sprint review meeting or sprint review event, we will be showcasing the product, the working product, so that everybody view about the work progressed will be at the same place, right? That's the beauty of it, right? In waterfall way of working, we'll be publishing bi-weekly meetings, or monthly meetings or reports. So to showcase the work progressed, here in Agile, we showcase the working product increment, we showcase it, and then we will converse, and then all of us will have a view about what has been achieved, right? So that is why the sprint review event is more important. Now, if you consider the practical context, my friends, what is happening is team do not give much importance to this sprint review event, or they give importance, they don't prepare well, or they prepare towards the end of the sprint. So because of which, what happens, there are many occasions wherein the product is, or the feature is working fine on my machine, but it doesn't work properly on a tester's machine or in a testing environment. And so that we can't demonstrate the working product properly to the product owner. So because of which, what happens is product owner understands you're not able to showcase the product increment properly. So I consider that this feature is not done properly. So many scenarios, it is the final steps that we don't do towards the last that actually kills us a lot. So that is the reason why we have to understand this sprint review event in a more holistic view. Okay, so with this, let us go and understand the sprint review event in detail. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. So if you see here, three things we're going to learn. Number one, how to conduct the sprint review event, and what are the anti-patterns that can derail the event, and what are the techniques to make more effective sprint review event. Okay, so this is what we're going to learn. Now, what is the review event, my friends? Okay, so the sprint review event, the purpose of sprint review is to inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine the future adoptions. That means this is a working session, my friends. Sprint review is not a demonstration. It's not a presentation. It's a demonstration, but just not presentation. It's basically we converse with the stakeholders and say, here is the outcome of what we have achieved as part of the sprint. And we're going to talk about, okay, this is how we're going to do future adoption. That means here, as part of this, we're going to discuss, okay, 4 stories we have signed up for this particular sprint. Out of this is what we expected, but this is something that has derailed us, probably some environment related things or some third-party dependencies has hit us. So basically, it is a working conversation between the product owner mainly, and some other stakeholders can come on his request. okay? And where the developers and the product owner, they converse about it. And the Scrum team presents the results of their work to the key stakeholders. The reason why I'm saying key stakeholders means it's the product owner and other stakeholders who are concerned about the progress of the product, and they've been invited by the team or the product owner, and they're going to see the work progressed and the work progress in the current sprint and overall how the product is shaping overall. Okay, both the things they tend to understand through this particular thing. Main goal is to understand the work progressed, how much work has progressed in the current sprint. Okay, so in summary, if you see, it is inspection and adoption. That means we're going to inspect. Why are we saying inspection? We're going to, the Scrum team is going to demonstrate the working increment, and people are going to see, okay, this user story has got this list of acceptance criteria. Okay, as far as this user story is concerned, whether all the acceptance criteria the team is able to demonstrate or not. Number one, that is where inspection. And then adoption means, if in case we are not able to meet a specific acceptance criteria in a friendly environment, okay, in a friendly environment, and there are going to be conversations saying that, we are able to meet this, we are not able to meet this, the reason is because of this. Likewise, you are going to discuss about the deviations, and so that we can adopt in the upcoming sprints, right? So at the end of the day, sprint review event is a friendly conversation, a demonstration of our work kind of an event. Okay, the participants are the Scrum team, the product owner, the Scrum master, and other stakeholders who are being invited by the product owner. Okay, the duration of this particular event is, if you conduct 1 week of sprint, 1 hour is required. If you conduct 2 weeks of sprint, if the sprint is of 2 weeks duration, 2 hours. If your sprint is of 4 weeks, that means 4 hours. But usually we go in a 2-week sprint, so it is time boxed to 2 hours per 2 weeks of sprint, right? So that's the duration. And now, what are the expected pattern? As I said, we are going to inspect the product increment, and it is a time for the product owner to learn what's going on with the product and with the team. Okay, and for the team, it's basically to learn what's going on with the product owner in the market. So basically, it's like this. Okay, the team comes and says, this is how the feature is working, and the product owner understands, okay, this story is having these many acceptance criteria, and out of these acceptance criteria, now out of 4, 3 got met, 1 did not get met, and what is the reason for that? Okay, number 1. And whether the acceptance criteria has met in all entity, in all entirety. So the product owner understands the perspective of the team by looking at the features working in front of him. The team understands the market perspective, right? The team understands the market perspective. Okay, that means the moment the team comes and says, look, I'm not able to meet this particular acceptance criteria, then the product owner explains, guys, this acceptance criteria, whatever you have achieved, is very important. It is going to give us the market penetration or market advantage. Okay, so whatever we have achieved, that part, he will tell how it is going to give edge to the product. For example, for some reason, some acceptance criteria is not met. And he says, guys, actually, we could not meet this particular acceptance criteria. Because of this, our product can probably lag in this area. So the team understands the market perspective, the product owner understands the team perspective, and it's a conversation. Okay, and then it's in-depth conversations happens, and it is meant to be a hands-on inspection of the real software running live. So it is not like this, people will talk, explain something in air. It is expected that you showcase the code, how the working product, how it is working, and people in the live environment. It can be an integration environment, it can be a pre-production environment, it can be a test environment, or it can be in production environment. depending upon the maturity of our DevOps in our organization. And so that, in a sandbox development environment, basically an in-depth conversations happens, a live product is being looked upon. Okay, so it's an active session in which the real users and the product owner do hands-on interaction with software. So, and then let's say ultimately a team requires a 30 minutes preparation meeting for this meeting. Because friends, what happens is last minute, some test data may not work properly, or some features may not work properly. So because of that, what happens is because of certain last minute changes, last minute adjustments, that is not been there, there's a high probability that we don't make a good demonstration of the product. So before the sprint review event, we want a preparation event of a 30 minutes of duration, so that people make sure the team groups together, they ensure that environment is working fine, data is working fine, the final check of features working fine, and then they go as a prepared team to the sprint review event. Because this is the event wherein the product owner and the stakeholders, they perceive certain perceptions about the progress of the product, at the same time the progress of the people as well. So it's an experience touch point. It's very important. Okay, so it's better we do a 30 minutes preparation review meeting. We call them as sprint review preparation meeting, or a mock meeting, wherein you mock it. Like somebody in the team will act as a product owner, and other people will act, the people who want to present it, they present it. So there'll be certain questions. So they do a certain rehearsal. That's called a rehearsal event, a 30 minutes rehearsal event before the main event is important. Okay, friends, this is what it is. So it is an inspection adoption related to the product increment. So in very simplistic words, you sign up the user stories on the sprint planning day, and then you demonstrate those things as per the acceptance criteria that is mentioned in the user stories. And product owner, team, scrum master, and other stakeholders invited by the product owner who wants to see the progress, the product will be there. And the duration is 1 hour for 1 week of sprint. Yeah, so this is what it is. So during this event, the scrum team and stakeholders review what was accomplished in the sprint review, in the sprint, and what has changed in their environment. Okay, the deviation. So what have we achieved? What we could not achieve? What is the reason for the deviation? Okay, so the sprint review is a working session, and the scrum team should avoid limiting to a presentation, right? So it is not like this, you come here and you present a PPT to the product owner. No, you have to show the product owner, you have to show the working product, and people want to see the working product. That's the beauty of the scrum, right? So people will get an opportunity to see the working product at the end of each sprint. Yeah, this is what is do. Do means what? What is sprint review event, right? How to conduct sprint review event is this. Yeah, so how to conduct? So as a scrum master, you will facilitate a 30 minutes mock or preparatory session before the main sprint review event, just to make sure that, okay, this story, who presents? Okay, what are the key points that we need to present? Okay, whether the test data is proper or not, number one. Number two, whether the definition of done is properly met or not, number two. Number three is whether are we inviting the proper stakeholders to this? Are they coming? If they are not coming, then we need to inform them, like, can you prioritize other meetings so that you can actually come and grace your presence and provide your inputs on this. So Scrum Master need to make sure that you have the team doing a preparatory session, and people understand, okay, story number one, and the person presented is A, and basically as per our understanding, we have met all the acceptance criteria. So all the story points we are confident of taking back. The second story, partial, out of 6 acceptance criteria, 4 we met, 2 we did not meet it. So how do we address that? What is the reason for deviation? And third thing, whatever deviations we want to talk on different stories, are we representing the team consensus? Because it's not like this that you go and outright you talk there, because the stakeholders will perceive about the entire team. So these are the deviations, and these are because of these deviations, because of these impediments, we are not able to achieve the sprint goal. And how do we present it? What kind of support we need so that this kind of deviations won't occur? So that kind of preparatory session we have to do, number one. Number two, and sprint review meeting need to be facilitated as a celebration event. It's like a working session, conversation, friendly conversation. You set up a proper friendship on a platform called product, wherein the product, the stakeholders, the developers, we talk about the functionality. Okay, we talk about why we achieved, how we could achieve what, and what we did not achieve, why we could not achieve, what are the impediments, kind of a thing. Okay, so this is how we have to do it. Now let's talk about the anti-patterns. Okay, one by one. Here is where the experience lies. Number one, the first anti-pattern here, my friends, is long size user stories. That means large user stories, they were prioritized. See friends, I come across situations where user stories of size 40, 20, 13 are prioritized for this sprint. Now, what happens is, for example, if you see here at the bottom, user story 1, it is of 40 story points. Ideally, we should not pick it up, but it so happens on the ground that team picks up these big story points. And then what happens is, some part of the scope, it was completed last sprint, some part is destined for this sprint, and some part is for the further sprint. For example, if you see here, out of 40 story point user story points, ideally we should not pick these big stories. But because it's anti-pattern on the ground, you come across situations wherein you are taking a 20 story points worth of work, 40 story points worth of work, wherein you completed some, like for example, out of 48 story points got completed last sprint, and 13 story points is what we are aiming in this sprint, so that remaining 19 story points you are actually planning to work in the upcoming sprints. So you come across a situation, you pick up a big size story, part of it you complete last, part of it you wanted to complete now, and remaining part you wanted to complete later. This kind of situations you come across. Ideally, friends, the story point should be around 5 or 8 maximum. Even 13 you should take in the extreme scenario. But you come across this kind of scenarios. Okay, so first thing to address this particular thing is we have to educate the product owner of not of splitting user stories. First thing is we have to educate product owner to split the stories. But you come across certain cultural issues, or they say, guys, this is what it is. I can't split more than this. And even to educate the product owner about how to split stories, it takes a long way. Probably it may take 2 to 3 months to change their mindset. So in that situation, what you need to do is you need to clearly mention, right, in this sprint, this part of the scope is targeted. That you should define in the sprint planning itself, right? So this scope of this particular large story for this sprint is this part, probably development or unit testing or first 4 features. Likewise, that particular scope need to be defined. Otherwise, what happens is the product owner or other stakeholders come to the meeting wherein I expected you to complete 6 features, but you're only showing 4 features. Then people say, no, it's basically last sprint itself we have completed. These features we want to complete, next features, some kind of confusion will come. So we should avoid it. We should avoid it. How do you avoid it? First thing is we have to educate the product owner to prioritize user stories of smaller size, okay, whose story point size should not be more than 8. That means less than or equal to 8. In the worst scenario, up to 13. But all the stories should be restricted to up to 8, because you should pick your stories in such a way that you can complete within a sprint. That is number one way of working. Number two, in a scenario wherein product owner is not helping you, in that situation, as a technical team, it is important to make sure all of us have the same clarity about what is expected to be completed for this sprint. And based on this, we have to showcase the demonstration. Okay. The second anti-pattern is the work increment, that means whatever features that you're working, it doesn't work on the 11th hour. That means it was working fine, but suddenly in the sprint review meeting, it doesn't work. So because of that, product owner says, okay, you did not showcase me the working product, so I don't want to award you the story point. So your team's velocity is getting dipped. So that's a big gap. So how do you do this? You basically make sure that you have a preparatory session. Okay, and if you do a proper preparatory session, right, then you make sure that all your last minute adjustments happens, and you go prepare for the sprint review meeting. Okay, this is how you can most of the times, friends, this kind of anti-pattern happens in most of the teams, right? So people say, yeah, it was working till last 1 hour, or it was working till yesterday, somehow it is not working like this. So that and all, it has to be addressed by ensuring that you have a proper demo session. Yeah. Then third one is stories were completed partially, but whatever you completed, that is not of any value to the product owner. For example, let's assume that you wanted to build a matchbox consisting of, let's say, 30 matchsticks. Okay. Now, what you do is, as shown in the left-hand side here, so you try to build, some pieces which is of no value to product owner or stakeholders. Did you develop something? Yes, I developed something. The box, that too in a piece way I have prepared, but that is not of any use to me. Instead, if you can build me matchbox sticks, out of 64, you build probably 20. That's of value to me. So team completes some increment which does not relate any value to the product owner. And then product owner and then team says, because I've completed this, I wanted to split it and I want to realize the story point for it. For example, out of 13 story points, because I've completed this much, I want to claim 3 story points. But okay, 3 story points, what is the value you brought here? I'm not able to realize. See, you have to look from product owner lens, stakeholder lens, not from technical lens. This is the concept of horizontal slicing versus vertical slicing. Vertical slicing means acceptance criteria by acceptance criteria. You look at the completion, right? You look at from the angle of acceptance criteria. Horizontal slicing is how you build a technically product. That means your database is built, your middle layer is built, your UI layer is built. And if you just build your database and then part of middle layer, it is of no use to the product owner. Product owner can't even see at least some prototype kind of a thing, unless you build a UI or at least something working. If he sees, then he understands the value out of it. But now many situations, I come across a situation wherein team builds horizontal pieces so that vertically the product owner will not be able to see anything, and then they climb story points for it, and then they split stories, and then they cut it to remaining. No, it is not like this. We have to educate team saying that, guys, the story points will be awarded only if acceptance criteria by acceptance criteria are met. If there are 6 acceptance criteria for the story, if you complete 2 story points, 2 by 6 means 1/3 of total story points you can realize. At the end of the day, each story point that you deliver, that can be of value to the story to the product owner. So in this kind of a scenario, if you are not able to showcase any value to the product owner through whatever partial work you have done, okay, here I'm saying horizontal slicing, that means your database layer, your middle layer kind of a thing, then as is, you should transfer the stories to the next sprint. You can't split it because there's no value built. Okay, probably us technical tasks must have completed, but not story. You can't recognize, you can't claim for story points just because you have done something. Only when you show some value, at least you have met certain part of acceptance criteria, you're able to showcase it. Okay, in this case, the matchbox sticks. This is where it basically matters a lot. Okay, so the stories can be split only when you meet some part of acceptance criteria. Otherwise, it has to be split. It has to be carried forward as is. We cannot recognize, we cannot claim for story points. Okay, this is the second pattern. The third pattern is the team member comes and makes the story work somehow. Okay, and they are aware that the functional tests are not passed, non-functional tests not passed. So, or certain times that the acceptance criteria is not met. So there is a definition of done. The team is aware that the definition of done is not met, but they won't tell it. They say it's working, and they want to claim for it. It's not correct, friends. The whole Scrum, okay, it is basing on certain principles. Courageously, you have to tell the truth, right? And people are enabled, and we believe you. You have to maintain trustworthiness. So if at all something is working, you say, this is here, it is somehow working, but this part of definition of done is not met. This we are working together. So basically, even though you are seeing the product is working here, because we made it certain mock data here, and we stubbed it here, because of the stub it is working, but to take it to completion, it takes a bit more effort. We have to be very transparent about it. But in certain situations, team members, they don't provide good transparency towards this. This is against the Scrum principle itself. My dear friends, the Scrum or Agile fails because of people. 60% of the Agile projects fail because of people factors. Because we believe in the Scrum team, and the Scrum team need to be transparent about the truth. Yeah, so that's what it is. And third thing is the customer. Internally, we are thinking we are working in Agile, but to the customer, he doesn't see any increment. Why? Because you have not integrated the increment into integration environment, or a pre-production environment, or in a UAT environment. Okay, or in production, right? Because of this, customer don't see anything. You keep building it in your local branch or in a test branch, where the customer or the end stakeholder doesn't have any clue about it. Usually, the end customer will have a clue into production or pre-production or user acceptance testing environment. So in these three environments, you have to make sure you integrate it continuously. So it is not that you develop and pile it up. It's about you have to make sure that your code, the production code, is integrated periodically. So this is where the customer will perceive the change, right? So most of the people I've seen, they think from inside out. They think inside out. I have done my part. So what? At the end of the day, customer has to understand, or he has to perceive the change. If you look at the Facebook, if you look at Google, you will see the changes every half an hour. So as an end user, so likewise in the product that you're working, unless you ship it to the production and you integrate it, you make sure the code base is latest with the new features, the customer won't see this. So in some of the scenarios, the customer still considers that he is getting the increment once in 3 months and once in 6 months, whereas the team claims that I am following Agile. It is not matching, right? So unless it's your responsibility does not complete. It does not complete in just completing the feature and make it working in a test environment. Your responsibility is till the end customer perceives. So the concept of Agile, the ensuring that he perceives the working increment at periodic intervals, that should be met, right? Otherwise, what happens is we lose the opportunity of taking their feedback. And if the feedback is not coming, it is against the principles of Agile. Yeah, so this is what it is. And then the other anti-pattern is the software demonstrated. You have demonstrating the software, but a customer is not happy. Because what happens is customer provides requirement to product owner, and the product owner communicates the requirements to the development team. So in the whole chain, if the customer acceptance criteria, if either he doesn't provide it properly, or the product owner doesn't understand it properly, or he doesn't, along with the team, he doesn't groom it properly, or team does not understand it properly, what happens is ultimately when it comes to the hands of the customer, hey, this is not what I expected, is what he thinks. So ultimately he's not happy. When he's not happy, his feedback, we need to capture it, right? So unclear acceptance criteria, that means you have to request for a change, and then you have to again change for do a development, because see, you took up a story, you delivered it, and the customer is not happy, and then a change will happen again a change will come, because what he explained versus what team perceives in user story, if there is a disparity, then there's a change, and then you do a development, okay, and then a rework will happen. So basically, in this kind of a situation, we need to understand why these kind of disparities are coming, and so that we can do things first time right. Okay, the next anti-pattern is the sprint demo was not facilitated by the whole team. So you have certain stalwarts, right? Out of your 6-member team, 1 member will be there. Always he only comes and presents, or 1 or 2 members, they only present. Other people will be just observing like this. So what happens is, it's basically, it's a silo-based competencies will be built, instead a cross-functionality. So what happens is, ultimately, friends, I'm telling you, each story you need to decide who will demonstrate it and who will support that person, primary and secondary. Likewise, we have to make sure that entire team presents. It is our work. It is our work, friends. Right? So it is not that 1 or 2 individuals presents, sprint demo closed, successfully done. No, it is a working session. All as a whole team, we need to present it. We need to contribute to this, so that we can stay relevant. It's our own product. Okay. Then the next anti-pattern is, especially for the research stories or spike stories, we don't produce minimum possible documentation, right? So we take agile principle and say, hey, agile says lightweight, we don't require heavy documentation. That's okay. But you need to produce, you need to provide, right? A minimum necessary documentation where necessary, especially whenever you take up a spike story or research stories. Yeah. The other anti-pattern is, now the sprint demo was completed, and the outcome was not recorded by the Scrum Master properly. So what happens is, a sprint demo was completed, and then we claim, okay, for example, let us assume the scenario is, out of 29 story points, we claim 18 story points. That's what they think. But we don't publish it. When we do not publish it, everybody will have their own view. So they may be thinking that this team has done only 10 story points worth of work. Other stakeholders may be thinking about 20, another point 15. They leave the meeting with their own perceptions. But we have to record, and we have to say, look, guys, 4 stories we have taken. The story number 1 is this. Story number 2 is this. For the story number 1, 5 story points were targeted. All the acceptance criteria was achieved. So 5 story points are awarded here. And second story is of 8 story points worth of work. We have demonstrated all the story points. So 8 is story points we are taking. Third story, out of 8 story points that we targeted, 1 acceptance criteria we have not met. That is minor, because of which we are claiming 5 story points for further work. And the deviation for not meeting these story points is these 3 story points. Like 8 minus 5 is 3 is this. This is the deviation, reason for the deviation. And the fourth one is, 4th story, we are unable to showcase anything. So we are not, even though some work got completed, there is horizontal work has done, technical work has done, we could not demonstrate any of the acceptance criteria. Hence, we are not claiming any story points here. So the reason for the deviation is this. And out of 29 story points that we targeted in this sprint, only 18 story points were able to achieve, and this is the velocity. So this kind of conclusion should be there in the sprint planning, sprint review meeting. Most of the times, I have seen Scrum Masters who come to the meeting, guys, okay, now I'm giving it to the technical lead or some other person, and they lead it and then close it. But at the end of the session, or during the session, for example, 1 story completed. Now, generally, I have seen a good practices wherein a Scrum Master come to the meeting, and the Scrum Master says, okay, story number 1, and the presenter is this. Story number 2, the presenter is this. Now, before moving from 1 story to second story point, he will ask the product owner and stakeholders, guys, we are able to showcase all the acceptance criteria for this story. So we are claiming all the 5 story points. Now we move on to the next story point. Okay, and the next story. So other person presents, and then you present it. So the Scrum Master need to be an anchor. Okay, certain times team may feel a little handicapped in terms of presenting the deviation effectively. Okay, so the Scrum Master comes forward and he helps the team to present the deviations effectively in front of stakeholders. And then he facilitates who will do third point. It's basically Scrum Master does like in between story one, presentation done. This is story point achieved. The reason for deviation is this. Story number two, presentation is to be done by other person. Story number three. See, it's likewise a cut, done, cut, done, cut, done. So in between, so when you present it in this particular way, then once you come to end of the sprint review meeting, you can say, guys, as discussed, this is what it is. Out of 29, 18 story points worth of work is what we have achieved. And this is how we show. So this is very important, my friends. And so the Scrum Masters and team, everybody need to be engaged about what has been accomplished. And everybody's understanding should be the same. And at the conclusion of sprint review session, the Scrum Master need to publish this so that everybody will have the same view about what was achieved in the last sprint. Okay, so now friends, we have discussed about 9 anti-patterns. Okay, 9 anti-patterns we have discussed, and now we are going to discuss about the third leg. Okay, that's called techniques to make the sprint review event more productive. The first technique, my friend, right, is you need to pick up only definition of ready user stories into your sprint. Many a times, what happens is you pick up large stories, you pick up definition of ready not comprehensive. That means you have certain dependencies on third parties, and you know that the third dependencies are there. You know there's a risk of not you may not get those dependencies resolved. Still, you pick up those stories. So what happens is you end up not completing the story. So team will say, what can I do? I'm waiting on it. So because I'm waiting on it, and I can't do it. So what happens is it results in low productivity, low velocity, right? So it's important, my friends. If at all a story is not meeting definition of ready, that means the story should have invest principle. That means the story should be independent. It should be independent in terms of smallest possible thing. It should be negotiable. That means people should be able to negotiate on the value that story is bringing to the table. And you should be able to negotiate why this, why not that, in terms of prioritization. It should be valuable. And you should be able to estimate in such a way that it's small enough that it can fit into one sprint. And ultimately, the acceptance criteria are testable. Right? In other way, there is another rule called SMART. The story should be specific and independent, measurable, achievable, and relevant. It should be relevant to the business goals, and it should be time-bound. Yeah. So using your definition of ready, only you have to pick up the small stories. The beauty lies there itself. The moment you give certain lenience in terms of accepting stories which are not definition of ready, then you end up losing your velocity and it will demotivate the team. So that's why there's number one. Okay. And stories should also be rightly defined. Yeah. So that's what it is. And at the end of the day, once you complete it, it should be meeting the definition of done as well. Right. So you have to make sure the definition of done is made visible and made, you have people should digest the definition of ready, definition of done, so that they'll say whenever something is done, right, and they'll say that it is meeting the definition of done. Yeah, so then only we consider as done. So what is important? Stories should be of right size, small size, and that should be definition of ready, complaint, and only definition of done stories you should say they are done, and you should realize the entire velocity for that. This transparency is important. This fairness is important. This ethics is important. Initially, if you go with a mood of clocking more velocity, even if something is not done, you use your negotiation techniques to ask for more story points. That and all will bite you in the long run. Our ethics, our values will save us, right? So only definition story should be right sized. Your acceptance criteria should be well defined. And stories should be small user stories, especially they should be less than or equal to 8 story points worth of work usually. And definition of ready user stories only should be picked up. And only if they meet definition of them, you should claim the all user story points for it. Yeah, this is the first technique. And we have to, this is a cultural change. We have to educate our team accordingly. Yeah, then the second thing is, friends, I'm telling you, you have to take sprint review as a formal celebration event. Okay, it's basically, you work for about 2 weeks. You should take pride in presenting your progress to the entire stakeholders. We have to consider this as a formal celebration event. The way you celebrate your kid's birthday, okay, the way you celebrate your auspicious events in your life, right? Likewise, we have to consider the sprint review as a celebration of progress, right? We should take pride in presenting our work to stakeholders, right? So this moment you are committed, saying that this, to take this as a formal event, and you want to celebrate it, demonstrating the progress is godly, yeah, the progress, and then everything else will fall in place. Yeah, so we need to consider sprint review event as a formal celebration event where you're passionate to demonstrate the work progress in the last 2 weeks. Okay, the third one is, people think about, we demonstrate only during sprint demo or sprint review event to the product owner. No, you can as well ask the product owner to come to your desk and see, even on third day or fourth day of the sprint. For example, a development is done and you have done unit testing for that, it is working fine in your development environment. You can ask the product owner, okay, on third day of the sprint, once your development is completed, can you look at this, come to my desk and see how it's happening? Okay, or you can use the online connectivity, and you can ask, so that you can periodically demonstrate. It is not that you have to wait till the end of the sprint to demonstrate. You have the opportunity of seeking the product owner feedback or business analyst feedback early in the game. So that's why, if you see, my friends, if you see, I have provided two curves here. Product owner curve will be like this. That means the product owner will be very busy at the beginning of the sprint and at the end of the sprint. In between, he will be loaded, but not to that great extent. Whereas our team will be peak loaded, okay, in the middle of the sprint. These are tentative curves, friends, tentative curves. So just to tell you one fact, that product owner will have time and they will be interested to see the working increment even during the sprint itself. I've seen product owners who are available to the team and they are eagerly waiting to see the working increment, even second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day. So when you do, if you take up a feature, development completed, you demonstrate it. Testing completed, you demonstrate it. And then finally, when you present it in front of product owner, 2 rounds of presentation already done. That means 2 rounds of feedback already taken. So the chance for the product owner to ask difficult questions, and where you don't clock the required velocity, the opportunity for failure is very less, and the opportunity for success is more, because you have demonstrated 3 times during the sprint. So the product owner will be very happy to award you all the story points, right? And you also can take up certain assumptions, and you can validate your assumptions also during your periodic demos. Okay, the fourth one is preparation. See, friends, I'm telling you, even the best sprint review events happens by proper preparation. You have to give importance to preparation. Preparation is not something just add-on activity. You have to meet for 30 minutes and you have to ensure that everything is working fine. You need to know who is presenting, what story, what can be the possible questions, what can be the possible deviations, and what are the reasons for that. You should go prepared, my friends. That's all. This is where your excellence lies. Okay. Then the next one is, in some situations, product owner acts as bossy, saying that, guys, 0 or 1. That means whether you have achieved all the acceptance criteria, I will give you all the story points. But you have achieved partial story points, then I will give you 0 story points. It's a 0 or 1. That means, for example, a story is having 5 acceptance criteria and you have achieved, let's say, 3, right? So 3 out of 5 is 60%, right? Now the product owner says 3 out of 5. So I don't give you any story points for that. Then we should negotiate for the, I'm able to showcase out of 5, 3 story points, I'm able to, 3 acceptance criteria, I'm able to demonstrate. So because of that, the team has to be awarded the partial story points for this kind of work. So we need to, negotiate, right? In case of vertically for the acceptance criteria, we demonstrate the progress. And finally, my friends, I want to say that we need to enjoy the conversations. See, friends, I'm telling you, the conversations are rich conversations. The conversations will make us understand the product owner perspective. It makes us understand more details about the product, about the market, about our competitors, kind of a thing. Similarly, for the product owners, it will give you the mindsights and insights or viewpoints of the developers. So these conversations are very, very enriching. Enjoy those things. You can enjoy those things only when you stay relevant, when you stay prepared, and when you stay engaged. And then in the conversations, be truthful and pragmatic. I'm saying truthful because if in case some definition of done is not met, tell upfront. Similarly, be pragmatic because if in case out of 5 acceptance criteria, you have achieved 3, then ask for, partial story points. And then it is an opportunity to create a positive relationship. Friends, I'm telling you today, in the industry, we need trustworthy people. And people will remember us for the rest of their experience, working experience. Hey, around 5 years back, no, I used to have one person called so-and-so name, okay? And that person used to be like a Jamia. That means what? Every touch point, every sprint review is a good touch point. Understand it. Stay, ensure that you establish positive relation on a platform called product knowledge and collaborate. Okay, so these kind of deviations I have received, and this environment did not work, or the deviations have come like this, and how do we take it next? So otherwise, product owner can also say, guys, next sprint, 80% of your bandwidth you reserve for stories, 20% of your bandwidth you reserve for production incidents, because our stakeholders are really, they're uncomfortable with the production incidents. So then collaborate. See, just don't show the contract saying that, hey, I'm only responsible for development. No. Look, see, take the, the perception of the product owner or stakeholders, the end consumers, and collaborate, right? Okay, I have 5 stories in my pocket, out of which you want me to work on these 3, and remaining these 2, you wanted to change with other stories, that's okay. Similarly, my friends, any new ideas that you're bringing to the table, talk, saying that, guys, as part of working on this particular story, I realized that, there's a possibility of making certain technical advancement, technical optimization, or refactoring to so-and-so functionalities. So can we take it as part of our product backlog? So likewise, be relevant, enjoy the conversations, be truthful and pragmatic, and create positive relationship. And we all need to have a collaboration on what to do next, so that all of us are on the same page. So with this, my friends, what we have understood, okay, here also I'm just going to change, okay, sprint review. Yeah, so here also, what we have understood, the 3 things we have understood: do's, how to conduct sprint review event. The sprint review event is going to be a 1 hour per 1 week. If your sprint is going to be for 2 weeks duration, then 2 hours, right? And you need to have a mock-up session, a preparatory session before. And the product owner, team, as well as other stakeholders invited by the product owner can present. It's an important touch point, what stakeholders perceive about the product and about our team, and take pride in this particular event, and do it as if you are celebrating your kid's birthday, or do it as if you are doing an auspicious event. Okay, take pride in presenting your work, in demonstrating your work, right? And make sure that these are enriching conversations, and then it will be a real grand success. You're not only presenting your progress, you're also acting as an ambassador of the team as well as the product to the stakeholders. And what are the anti-patterns? Almost like 9 anti-patterns we have walked through. what can derail this event, and we have also discussed in terms of how to prevent these things. And then finally, we have discussed about 5 techniques that can enhance the throughput, that means the story point, that means the velocity that we can clock in a specific sprint. With this, I thank your interest to join and learn in this Saturday. And I really appreciate your interest to learn. And I look forward to add more value add sessions in future. Thank you. With this, I'm ready to take more questions.